we are smack dab in the middle of Inktober, which means it's time to create some moody, black and white illustrations. In this video, we're going to create not just one, but 3 spooky Inktober illustrations on my phone. At the end, we'll line them up for a critique to see which one can be crowned the Pumpkin King. Alright, we're going to start off with an illustration of Batman, of course, always my go-to. So to start off, I'm going to block out my shapes with a coarse brush. So this is a little bit different from what I normally do with sort of the soft round brush. And I'm just quickly defining what the illustration is going to look like. I'm actually adding a lot more lighting here than I normally do at the sketch stage. And that's because keeping up with Inktober is a mission and a half. I don't know, I've seen other artists online who are able to dedicate a lot of time and able to commit to producing, a drawing a drawing a day, which is, way more than I'm currently capable of committing to with my current lifestyle. So when trying to create a lot of illustrations during the month of October for Inktober, I think one of the things that I've settled on is to be very strategic and very careful about the compositions that I choose to create. And what I mean by that is for the 3 illustrations that you're going to see me create here, I'm really going to stick to creating the type of illustrations where there is a strong focal point in the illustration, but not a whole lot of details. Now, this can normally look like a plain drawing if not handled correctly, but because we're dealing with Inktober and because we're dealing with black and whites and high contrast image, what we can do then is leverage all the lighting, all of the dramatic tones to obscure detail and just really focus on the drama of the image. So in this particular case, I'm drawing a very rage or creepy or scary type of Batman, kind of reminiscent of the Kelly Jones run back in the 90s. And with that, I'm using rough brushes. I'm going to fill in the background with some inky blacks, and I'm going to not define all the edges for the character. I'm going to have like the cheekbone there bleed into the black. So it looks like, this is a character that's, just coming out of the shadows and looking straight at you. So with that, you're able to create something really quickly without having to spend a whole lot of time with a lot of details and defining a whole lot of things. So this is how it turned out. Not a bad place to start, but let's see if we can create something better with the next 2 illustrations. So for this illustration, I'm going to draw Nina Harkness from the original Dracula novel. Big fan of Dracula, love the novel. It's one of my all-time faves. And I think Nina Harkness is a really cool character. I liked what Alan Moore did with her in The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So I wanted to draw sort of a quick illustration of her sort of from the novel. Originally, I was thinking of doing like one of the brides of Dracula, but thought Nina would be more interesting to draw. So here you can see I'm using my soft round brush, as I normally do. I quickly sketched out the figure, and again, very simple composition. She's right in the middle of the canvas, so all the focus will be on her. And what I'm relying on is a lot of contrast in the inks to make sure that keep your eyes fixated on the figure. So in here, one of the things that you see me do is try to add a little bit more rendering to the dress because I'm dealing with a lot of contrast here with the dark background versus her figure, which is mostly in white. I wanted to add a little bit of depth and a little bit of texture by applying a lot of rendering to the dress. But you got to be careful not to overdo it. If there's just a whole bunch of lines and a whole bunch of rendering on the dress, it can sort of dilute what it is that you're going for, look more confused and busy than it does purposeful and focused. And the same thing holds up with the hair. Just adding hints of rendering in the hair. I don't want to over render the hair. And you can see here, I wasn't too happy with the dress, so I tried to start again with the rendering. But you'll see that I quickly abandoned this look because it does venture into the area of being over rendered. So I go back to my originals and try to improve those. You can see here that even though I defined my silhouette early on, I'm open to changing it and shaping it as we go through this process. So I've added some hatching to the dress to add that bit of rendering. What you see me do pretty soon is that I'm going to start applying some textures by playing around with different brushes. You can use a lot of the sprayer brushes in Clip Studio, or if you're using other apps, they offer a lot of texture-based brushes that allow you to create just a little bit more of a look and feel to everything. So you can see here, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm actually lowering the opacity of my brush so it looks a little bit more gray. And then here's the final result. Looking at it now, I'm actually not too thrilled with this illustration. I feel like it's a little bit too simple. Let's see if we can do better in the next illustration. All right, if I'm gonna draw Nina Harkness, then I might as well draw the big guy, Dracula. So for this one, I'm really gonna try to build off of what I did before and try to learn from that. So this illustration, the goal here is to utilize that dramatic lighting as much as possible. In the previous illustration with Nina, I really sort of left everything sort of monotone with the shading and the lighting. Here, I'm gonna really try to make something a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more creepy, and try to use a light source directly in the image. So here we have Dracula holding a lantern, looking down at Jim Harkness, who's just sort of fallen over. I want the expression to be slightly smiling, but in a way that's very creepy and very unnerving. One of the great cool things and fun things to do with these types of illustrations is to spend a little bit of time and just sort of research different outfits and costuming from those era. It adds a lot to your illustration. So in this particular case, you can see that if I was just sort of left to my own devices and sort of just to try to come up what the look was going to be without spending any time researching, I really wouldn't have drawn the collar the way that I've drawn it in this illustration. It's always a good idea to spend a little bit of time just researching, props and costuming and looks from whichever area that you're drawing in, even if you're talking about contemporary times. It just adds so much. It just gives you a lot of creative options that you may not have considered before. So you can see here, and I'm going to make some dramatic decisions later on. You can see here, originally I had where the Dracula's arms was completely whited out in the background because I wanted to have Jim Harkness' face silhouetted against the white. However, it really took away from the dramatic lighting against Dracula. So again, it made everything black. I made it look like the arm was sort of coming out of the shadows holding the lantern. And then with Jim, it's going to be a little bit more subtle than I originally intended. But that's okay. The focus should be on Dracula versus the other character in the foreground. Really, the foreground should just be adding a little bit of context to the character. So you can see here, I'm spending a lot of time rendering the outfit. One of my all-time fave illustrators is Tim Sale, and one of the things that you'll notice with his creations is that he spends a lot of time creating simple contrast, but then adding a little bit of detail in there in the exposed area, so your eye can sort of read the information really clean, but you can sort of appreciate and take in those details that he adds in. So I'm trying to replicate not so much his style, because he has a very different drawing style, but that sort of philosophy here. One other element I want to bring up is that I'm using a brush pen for this illustration. And that's going to give a more roughed and textured look to the illustration versus sort of using like a nib pen or sort of a sharper type of pen. And I'm trying to take advantage of that, especially with areas in the jacket. Here you can see there's a softness in how I'm trying to render that jacket. And then also with the lantern, I really try to take advantage of the sort of different textured brushes that I have in Clip Studio and try to give that soft lighting. So here's how it's turned out at the end of it. I like some elements of it, but I kind of like it less than I'm looking at it. All right, let's line up my 3 illustrations for a little shout out. And man, it's an eye-opener. First, Dracula. I had high hopes, but it's a bit of a letdown in this group. It's detailed, sure, but the composition feels lackluster. I should have cropped it in closer on his face and skipped the fancy silhouette of Jim Harkness. Now, Nina Harkness. Clear composition, but feels a little too simple. Adding more details to that dress would have done wonders for this illustration. I'm thinking about taking more cues from Frank Cho's ballpoint art when it comes to these type of fabrics. And the winner is Batman. Simple, strong composition, and it draws you in. The brushwork's detailed, but it doesn't lose your focus. So Batman is crowned as the Pumpkin King. Go forth and add to the parade of Inktober posts on Instagram feeds everywhere. Well, that was some of the drawings I did for Inktober this year. What do you guys think? Which one of these illustrations do you think worked best? How do you guys approach Inktober for your own drawings? Let me know in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, tap that like button. Hit subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, keep drawing.